ready.
Welcome to another episode of Buff in the Rough. Today we'll hear from Jeremiah Burris about nighttime hunting to avoid the summer heat, friendly rivalries, favorite hunting stories, and a whole lot more. Help me welcome Jeremiah to the program. Well, hey Jeremiah, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How you doing today, Mr. Buff?
Well, I'm doing just fine. I'm really glad to talk to you. I'm excited to talk to you and learn a little bit more about you and what you've been into recently. But before we get started, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into rabbit hunting?
Well, I'm from Blacksburg, South Carolina, and I started rabbit hunting around 11, 12 years old. It was a bit of a random thing for me. My dad came up to me and my brother one day, and he said, "Y'all want it?" And that was something we never did, and he always talked about it as how he did it as a kid. When we was about 4 or 5 years old, he did have a couple rabbit dogs, and then he got out of it before we was old enough to really tag along with him well. So we said, yeah, we'll get some, and it took him a while to end up getting it. It was just that one mention of him saying, let's get some. So, I didn't think he was going to end up getting them, and one day he told me to come down to my grandmother's house, and he had about 3 or 4 lemon dogs out there. He got from a buddy of his. At the time, they were great dogs. They weren't the best dogs in the world. And two of them was running. One of them was a puppy at the time. So, started off then. We started doing a little bit of hunting. And a buddy of his from work introduced him to his uncle. His uncle was out of Tennessee. His name is Arthur Lynn. We still good friends with him. About couple dollars off of them, still buy dollars off of them every now and again, and we bought $3 of him at the time. They were all little mates. No, it was $4. It was little mates, 2 brothers, a sister, and a cousin, and we bought them. But my dad, he was a truck driver, so there wasn't much hunting I could have did with him. And of course, I wasn't old enough to drive, so I had felt addicted to it a few times. I did though. So my cousin, his name is Keith. He had some rabbit dogs as well. So he come pick me and my brother up, and I go grab a few of the dogs, and we'd go hunt with him. And long story short, we ended up going from maybe $6 to $7 to, I could swear to you, we bought half the dogs Jeff Stacy had. We bought a bunch of dogs off of him, maybe at least I would say 20. That's a probably understatement of how many dogs we bought from Jeff, and we bought a bunch more off of a guy from Tennessee, Arthur. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up having a pretty good amount of dogs, and he wanted to transition to AKC, so Jeff mainly be UKC. We still got a female off of Jeff out of his wild man dog, and we got a bunch of most of everything we got is AKC. So I got older and got my license and got me a truck and was able to drive. So I started doing a lot more hunting by myself. And for a while, it was just straight gun hunting for us. That's all we ever did for the longest. And that's how I started rabbit hunting.
So how long did you just gun hunt before you got into any competition hunting? How many years did you do that?
Oh, I was just gun hunting forever. My buddy Dalton Evans, he got with the dog he runs is from Jeff too, that dirty black cold dog. I believe he played third in the world hunt last year. Well, me and Dalton probably lived 20 minutes away from each other at that, and I didn't even know Dalton. Never heard of him, never nothing. And I got some buddies. They do some coon hunting. And I was like, y'all need to let me do some rabbit hunting on the land. Y'all got all these coon dogs. And he said, I got a buddy that do some rabbit hunting. He said, I can introduce you to him. I said, yeah, well, call him up. So he called him up, and it happened to be Dalton. This happened to be his nephew. So he called Dalton up and said, I got a guy. He's want to run dogs with us. And Dalton was like, well, that's fine. We can do that. And I said, okay, how about next Saturday? So the next Saturday came, I went and grabbed $3 or $4, and he bought $3 or $4. And we went. I said, I got a spot we can go to. So we went and turned loose, and he said, man, you got some pretty good dogs. He said, you ever thought about trying it? I said, yeah. I said, my dad did like 1-2 trials back in the days when him and Jeff first started being acquainted. But other than that, I said I really ain't never thought nothing about it. I just like to gun hunt, and so we clicked instantly. I'm talking about from that day forward, every other day, every weekend, we running dogs together. We talk every day, text every day, and he told me, he's like, it's a trial coming up. This is Ronnie Brown's trial last year, his state hunt, which was my first trial I entered. It was back in October. He said, I got a trial coming up. He said, if you don't want to run one of your dogs, I got a couple dogs, you can run one of mine. I said, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to take my dog. I said, I'll, see what they want to do and give them a shot. And so, I planned on taking 3. The one dog that I wasn't able to take is the female that I'm running this year. I was running her, getting tuned up for the trial, and I have no clue what happened. If she had she just snapped out of it. It was almost like she had a seizure. So we rushed her to the bed, and the vet couldn't figure out literally nothing. They ran all kinds of tests, shot her with some IVs, and so she sat at the house for about 3 or 4 days, and then she finally came back to her senses. But I was like, I'm not gonna try her. And male and my female, the female I took, she's still getting trial now as well, the junior female. And so I took her and a male dog we got named Pretty Boy, and I said, I ain't really expecting to win. These guys been doing this for a while. This is my first time. I don't really hardly know the rules of how this works. He gave me a little rundown. I knew, strike the dog in and how to call the line and stuff like that. And so I ended up winning with my male dog. First hunt ever. It was his first cast. He won that trial. And and he won that trial. And I said, I told him, I said, I actually like this. I said, this is something I think I can get myself into. I said, every trial you go to from now on, I said, I'm going. And so that's how it's been. Every trial he went to, I've been going. We went to all Jeff hunts, the state hunt, world qualifier, warrior hunt. We went to all newbies hunts. We went to, the national, of course, then the Ronnie's Club. And it's just something very turned me on really fast. And I enjoy it very much. I wish I would have gotten to it a long time ago, but if it wasn't for Dalton, I promise you I would not be trialing right now. I can sure say that.
Well, that's a really fascinating story about how you got started. Not only just started period and gun hunting and just loving going to the field with the beagles, but then kind of transitioning and figuring out how much you really like competition hunting. Who's been your biggest influence? I think I know how you're going to answer this after listening to you talk a minute. But who would you say has been your biggest influence on you in the rabbit hunting world so far?
It's a lot of people that's done influence me. I have to say that. My dad, of course. My cousin, he influenced me a lot. He kept me in the woods a bunch when I was a kid. He was going, I was going. But competition-wise, definitely Dalton. He for sure influenced me the most. He the one, told me. Because actually the dog that I placed in the Final Four with, I had absolutely no intentions of trying that dog whatsoever. And we was out there gun hunting. Funny story. The dogs came through, and I'm talking about the road was at least 20 feet wide. You can see 3-4 horses cross this path and not miss them. And we were sitting there gun hunting, and all the dogs came down along the path. Came along the edge, but never came out. And that male dog, he shot across the road. And I looked at Dalton, and he looked at me, and I said, "Did you see a rabbit?" He said, "No, I didn't see the rabbit." I said, "I didn't either." I said, "I don't know what he's got going on, but that didn't seem right." And by that time, all the dogs broke down and went straight to him. And the rabbit shot back across the road a few minutes later. And they came through pounding. I'm talking about they was pounding the rabbit. And he said, "Who you got coming first?" He said, "I got Cole." I said, "Well, I got Ruby, which is the female I had." I said, "I got Ruby coming through first." And Hawk came through. I'm talking about he probably was 10 yards in front of everything. I looked at the dog and he said, "Man, you need to try that dog." I said, "I just might need to." And so that's how his story ended with him becoming a trial dog. I won't lie to you, when we first got him, he would probably be, I ain't even gonna say probably, he was the most hard-headed dog that I've ever seen in my life. He would not handle come to you with nothing. You literally had to, tone his dog every time just to get him to come out of the woods. And so me and him had a few weeks of attitude adjustment before I decided to take him out for a trial. And I was a little skeptical. I said, well, he's either going to go two ways. He's going to listen to me, or I'm going to have to scratch him and go get the stick out of the truck to get him back. And he came straight back to me. I said, well, that's pretty good. I said, maybe this is luck. And every other time from there, he automatically come right back. So I don't even run him without run with the shot collar anymore during the trials. I just run him with the trapper collar now.
Wow. So Jeremiah, this is your dog Tomahawk that you've been doing some winning with. Well, tell us a little about him. I mean, because he's won some pretty big stuff. I mean, can you tell us like where he came from, a little bit about his breeding, if you know it? What kind of dog is he? How does he hunt? What does he look like? Just tell us about him.
Yeah, he's tricolor. He's probably maybe stand 14, a little bit over 14 inches. He had the biggest dog we got, but he got some pretty good feet from him. My dad bought him from his buddy. I can't think of his last name, but his first name is Kevin. He bought him from Kevin. My dad's a dog fanatic, and you can sit in a group chat. We got a group chat. He'll send 300, almost $100 a day. It seems like, and he sent that dog, and I said, what's that? He said, he bred good. I said, well, how is he bred? He said, good. I said, well, what's good? And he sent me the paperwork. He got a bunch of birch like in him, if you ever heard of that. So he sent me the paperwork, and I said, all right, well, I guess I can see what he do and see how he hunts. And so he got the dog and brought him down there. And like I said, hard-headed wasn't his main problem. When we first got him, I don't know if he just been soloed a lot or what, but the dog, he was super independent. Mm-hmm. And we went there hunting one day, and I seen him do it. He went on behind me, and he jumped a rabbit and was running the rabbit. And all the dogs went in, followed up. They running the rabbit. And we cut off trying to kill the rabbit. I hear another dog barking behind me, and I'm like, what's going on? He left the pack and went and jumped another rabbit and running it on his own. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe he just went and jumped that rabbit. No, that's how he was for the longest. If another dog would join in with him, he'd leave the pack and go find his own rabbit. And I'm like, well, this is not going to work out. So for Alyssa, the girl I hunt with, she can tell you right now, for as long as I told her, I said, you need to sell the dog. I said, you're not going to be no good. You don't want to pack up. I can't do nothing with him. I said, we need to get rid of him. My dad said, well, I like the way he bred. I said, well, I'll give him some time and I'll work with him and I'll see if I can break it from him. So we had a lot of attitude adjustments, but he finally was able to break out of that and handle pretty well. So he turned out to be a pretty good dog. I'm glad my daddy didn't listen to me or something. I will say that.
Well, I forgot to ask you in the beginning when you were telling us that you're from Blacksburg, South Carolina. Well, tell us what it's like to hunt there. I mean, what are the hunting conditions like where you live, and what kind of dog do you have to be successful there?
I would tell you one thing. It's a lot different from, especially, Tennessee, up in Mountain City. It's a bunch of Christmas trees. Ohio. Well, to some people that may seem thick. It was pretty open to me. Here, when you running, it's nothing but thickness. You might get some short pines, but it's going to be so thick that some of the areas we hunt in, I don't care if you got bird proof from top to toe, you can probably barely get 20 feet in some of the areas we hunt in. And so it's very tough to get in, and dogs get cut up pretty bad. And of course, I don't know why, but down here it's so hot even at nighttime. It'd be about 80 degrees on some days and 90 degrees in the mornings. And it's very tough to go out and run your dogs how you want to down here and get a couple of hours in before they get super hot and winded. But I can say it does show improvement and shows a difference in some of the other dogs we run with that's not so used to the heat. Because I was hunting with one guy, I believe he was from Michigan, and he was like, man, it's still 50 degrees at the house. I'm like, well, we reaching 70s, mid-70s right now. He said, well, it's still some snow on the ground. I said, well, that must be lovely because we far from snow down on Riff Round. And now we in the low 90s now, and we got to run almost strictly nighttime running, and it's still hot. But 80 degrees with the sun out is different between 80 degrees with the sun down. But we do a lot of night running down here because of the weather.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because it just started getting hot here. And I'm probably an hour north of you, and it's still hot and humid and all that fun stuff that comes with summer and snakes and ticks and spiders and pollen and everything else that's fun. So you hunt at night. That's a good way to do it for sure. To try to catch it when it's cooler. It seems like the running's a little better at nighttime too, for whatever reason. But do you guys have any bad snakes where you are? I mean, we've got copperheads and stuff here, but what do y'all have down there that you're afraid of? Or are you afraid of anything?
Not too bad down here. We got copperheads. I've hardly ever seen one. The most common thing we got is black snakes. That's the most common snakes we got down here. But I done had a couple dogs get bit by black snakes, and it's nothing really affected them. But I can say I've heard a lot of horror stories of people having their dog get snake bit and passing away. Luckily, I haven't had any of them incidents happen. So nothing too much stresses me besides, maybe stray dogs that'll be running around the scene like they want to attack the dogs or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't got too big of an issue with snakes down here.
Jeremiah, as you've been out competition hunting now for a little while, and it sounds like you've covered a lot of ground, especially in the southeast. You've hunted all the big clubs down here. What are some of the best hounds you've hunted against? I mean, are there any hounds out there that really caught your eye?
I would say I've hunted with a lot of good hounds, and I done tried to buy a lot of the hounds from like Nick. I be trying to buy his female Dolly all the time. I've never hunted with her, but it's just something about that dog that I always want to buy. But the particular dog, I done hunted with a lot of good hounds, but the one that stand out because I done drew with her twice, ran two different dogs. Bailey, she's up there part of Jeff Club. Her dog Chance, she beat me twice with that dog. Mm-hmm. And I told her, I said, you gotta give me a chance. I can't seem to beat you. And the first time I drew out with her was at Jeff's state hunt. I drew out with her there. That's when her dog was still in the registered cast, and y'all were running registered course. And she came through, whooped everybody. She went 4 for 4 that weekend and won the state hunt. And then I drew out with her back at Ronnie's hunt that just passed. And I championed Hawk out that morning. And I said, well, I'm going to run him tomorrow morning. So, of course, me and Bailey drew out, and we went through there, and she beat me by 30 points because Hawk came through and missed the line, and she beat me there. And I told Davis, which is her boyfriend, I said, man, you got to talk to her. She can't be whooping up on me like that. So that's definitely the dog that's right there that stands out the most because she's the only one that's beat me twice so far with the same dog.
Yeah.
She's for sure a nice little dog. I'll give her that. She's a nice little dog.
Yeah, she's been on a tear.
Like I said, I've hunted with a lot of good hands. So I can't pinpoint every single one, but that right there, I always get the best of them.
Do you do anything to get prepared for a hunt? I mean, if you know there's a big hunt coming up, do you do anything special, or do you just hunt your dog like you normally do?
I just do it how I normally do. I work. I get off work. I go turn and loose. I try to get at least 3-4 times in if possible. Thursday is a mandatory run day before a trial. I always run on a Thursday, and I let them rest that Friday. Some people run on that Friday, but I like to give them that day to rest, and I take them up there. We leave out that Friday evening, or if it's pretty close, we leave out that Saturday and just get up there that morning. But I don't do nothing much different than what I normally do with them.
I know these competitions, everybody wants to win. We all want to win. Nobody wants to lose. But the hard reality is you're going to lose. You're going to have a lot more losers than winners.
Oh, yes, sir.
So you're keeping score. Somebody's got to keep score. Who's one of the best judges that you've hunted with? Somebody that really you just were like, man, that's a really good judge. And maybe who the best judge you've hunted with and why? Why did you like them so much?
I've hunted with a lot. I can basically pinpoint everybody from Jeff Club. Kristen. I love hunting Kristen as a Jeff. She's, great. She always telling you what's going on, keeping you updated with the hunt, where you sitting at. If you got a question, she'll answer it. She's super fair. She's probably one of the fairest judges it is. Jeff a pretty good judge as well. Maston, I love hunting with Maston. He's one of my favorite judges as well. He's one of the ones gonna keep you laughing during the hunt as well. I don't care if my dog gets scratched. I'll walk over there and walk around with Maston just to be in his presence. He's an awesome judge. But definitely anybody from that club right there, I love them being my judge. I have no complaints about anybody from that club or from the Roundup Club.
Well, that's a good answer. What, as you've been out in these hunts, a lot of times we hear about the bad stuff that happens in a hunt. But I want to ask you, what's the nicest thing somebody's done for you while you've been out on a hunt?
Well, the nicest thing I'll say, this was at the Nationals. I was, going through the woods and had to go. Tom had just ran out and Hawk was in there running the rabbit, and I had to go get him. I had to go probably 200-300 yards in the woods to go get him, and I went in there and I dropped my phone, and the guy that was on my cast with me, I came out and man, I dropped my phone. I said, I'm going to go over here and see if I can get my dog, and I'm going to see if I can find my phone while we trying to lose. I said, if I hear him bark, I'll strike him in. So I was looking for my phone. Then the time ran out. I believe it was his dog that opened up, and the 3 had got him. And so I was like, well, damn, I got to go back over here and try to. So I went over there to try to get Hawk, and as soon as I could get back on the other end, of course he jumps the rabbit, and I don't got my dog. So I don't got. You have the dog finder, the path finder. So that's why I had my phone now, because I was trying to, back trace for stealth. So I didn't know where my dog was at. So I had to just take off running through the woods, following his voice, trying to cut him off. And I came back. They were over there looking for my phone for me. I said, man, I really appreciate that. I said, a lot of people wouldn't do that. But I said, I appreciate y'all helping me look for my phone. And I always remember, I thank them the whole hunt for that.
Yeah, that's good sportsmanship. And I tell you, phones are expensive.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I said, man, I'm going to get cussed out when I get back to this truck if I don't got the phone. But luckily we did find it. So I do thank him for that. And he still, he sent me a friend request on Facebook. He always comments on my pictures when I win. Nice. He's a really good guy, and that was the first time I met him. But I believe he said he's going to be in Michigan, so I had the opportunity to talk to him again as well.
Good. Maybe you'll draw out with him. Is there anybody that you like to beat just a little more than everybody else? I mean, we all have rivalries, so this is kind of a rivalry type question. But do you have somebody I'm going to leave Bailey out of it because it sounds like you've never beaten her. So to have a rivalry, I guess you'd have to beat her at least once.
Well, if she listens to this podcast, she don't know her name is coming up. Kristen Bundy.
Yeah.
Kristen Bundy. I drew out with Kristen 3 times, and I beat her all 3 times.
Woo.
We drew out once. It was the Memorial Hunt. We drew out at the Memorial Hunt. That was the first time I had beat her. I beat her. It wasn't a good hunt. It was, the set was tough and everything else. And then we drew out twice at the Nationals, and that's when I beat her with Hawk. And I thought she had me. We was coming down. Hawk was getting first strike, first line, and I had him up to 500 points, 400, 500 points at the time. And the kid we was with, well, he wasn't a kid. He was younger than me, but he was on his dog, went in there and was barking and barking. And wasn't nobody striking her dog. I said, it don't sound like Hawk, but it's far enough distance that it could be Hawk, and I not pick his voice up good. So I struck Hawk, and then I got to listening, and I looked at Chris, and I said, yeah, that wasn't Hawk. She said, I know it wasn't. So I ate the minus there, and I said, well, that's going to screw me at the end. We got right there at the end, jumped the rabbit. He went in there, got first strike, got the line, and all she had to do was her dog get second line, and she would have beat me. Her dog got third line on that. Oh. She sat there and said, Jeremiah, she said, I can't seem to beat you, can I? I said, I tell you my good luck charm. I said, if I ever draw with you again and I win, I'm going to say you were my good luck charm on Facebook. So the next day came, I drew it again with my own female dog, and she was in there, she's a super tight dog, so she hardly ever, managed from her mouth being too mouthy. But I think she did eat a minus. All the dogs went in there and opened up on the rabbit. And we seen the rabbit shot out. And the guys that we was hunting with didn't tell us where the rabbit went to. So we was all walking up on the trail and everything. The path with a rabbit grin and messed the whole line up. So everybody ate a minus there, and so we went in, and I was winning at first. And there's another. He's a great guy as well. He's out of Michigan. I think his name was Mark. His female, she started whooping us on checks. Every check, she was picking it up left and right. And then Kristen looked at the scorecard and she said, "Well, Jeremiah, I don't think he's gonna beat me today." She said, "It look like he got you right now." I said, "Yeah, I believe so too." I said, "He sure is getting us on them checks." And we had 5 minutes left in the hunt, and his female went gave him 3 marks. He had to strike in, and that was all she gave him. So he ate a minus there, and that's how I beat Kristen again. And she said, all I heard was she said, "You know, we got the world qualifier coming up next week." She said, "I better not draw out with you." I said, "I'm going to try to make sure you do." But fortunately for her, we'll say, I didn't get to draw out with her. But I'm counting on drawing out with her again pretty soon.
Jeremiah, I think that's hilarious. As competitive as Kristen is, this will be a great compliment to her too. But if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, and you're doing a good job. It sounds like.
Her and Jeff for sure some of the best it is. I'll give them that. So for her, me to go out there and beat her as long as I've known her, and I said, yeah, that feels special. Y'all don't care if she do beat me. I'm gonna congratulate her, and I'll congratulate her all over Facebook. But until she beat me, I'm gonna give her a little bit of.
That's right.
Give it to her.
Enjoy this ride while you can, my friend.
Oh yeah, I sure will.
Well, if you could add or subtract or change, modify any rule out there, is there one that you would pick?
So far, I do think the rules are pretty fair. I've heard a lot of people wish that we could run the shot collars. This instance is where I haven't had it happen to me yet. The dogs get on the deer and take off through the woods, and they got to run 200-300 yards back to the truck to hurry up and try to get their remote to shock the dog and stuff like that. But a good idea to me would be if you were to do that, instead of leaving it in the truck, either judge can carry a bag and keep it on them, or like a little small bag or something like that. So your dog do jump on the deer, you ain't got to run 200-300 yards to the truck to try to get your remote. There's plenty of time for a dog to get over 900 yards out, and it can be a pretty good struggle. But other than that, I think all the UKC rules are pretty fair. I like the format of how it is, and it's pretty easy to understand it as well. So other than that, it's not much I would change to it.
Okay, good answer. Do you have a favorite part of the country that you like to hunt in?
Well, I haven't been too far over at all. So far, Virginia and, of course, North Carolina. So far, those have been my favorite. Just not because of the people, but the terrain. My dogs are used to that, the thickets and everything like that. I like Doe Valley, but you got to have a dog that knows what they're doing. Because, like I said, my first trial, I went up there with Pretty Boy, and I ain't gonna lie, he's a bit of a mouthy dog, and I figured that out the hard way. Down here, I thought he was doing pretty good. And he go in the bushes, and he get the barking, and before long, that rabbit's up. But he went down through there, and them Christmas trees wide open, barking, and I struck him in. I ended up getting scratched the second round. I won him that morning. I got scratched the second round, and next day, that morning, I think I was one strike in from getting scratched. The guy said, he strike in again and don't do nothing here. He's going to be scratched. And I said, it's understandable. So he went in, and luckily he didn't bark again. I still ended up like minus 200 or whatnot, but I said, I know what adjustments need to be done. So I like it up there. Tomahawk went up there, and he did great up there. Ruby, she go up there and do pretty good, but it's something you got to have a dog that knows how to control their mouth. I would give it that. And so that's why I picked them 2 dogs right there to be my trial dogs. They don't make too many errors when it comes to their mouth and eat too many minuses. So I've been trialing them too, and I got a pup. She's doing pretty good. I'm gonna bring her out next year, and hopefully she can live up to the standards that they're living up to. We'll put it like that.
Okay. Well, share a favorite memory. Just a good memory. If when you're sitting on the porch 25 years from now, and just reminiscing about the good old days. What's a good memory that you have so far?
My favorite memory, and I always tell people this, every time I ride by the spot, I'll tell people the same story. We were sitting there hunting. This is my cousin Keith. I was with him, my uncle, my brother. There was a couple more guys. And we was out down hunting behind this little plant, and the game warden pulled up. And I was 15 at the time. This was the year before I needed my hunting license. I was 15 at the time. And the game warden pulled up, and he was sitting there, my cousin knew the game wardens and everything, and they had just confiscated a bunch of doves and some guns and stuff off of a guy. We were sitting there talking to him. By the time the dogs went over there and opened up, and they got to running, and I asked my uncle, I said, if that rabbit come out, can I shoot it? He said, well, if it come out, I'm going to shoot it. I said, with the game warden sit right there? He said, yeah. I said, okay. So we were sitting there talking, and the dog got closer and got closer. And I said, that rabbit's going to pop out right here. So sure enough, the rabbit popped out, and I rolled it right there in front of the game warden at 15 years old. And they just threw their hands up and got to hollering and cheering. And one of them was joking, playing like, all right, now let me check your license. And they just started laughing. But that's definitely one of my favorite memories and most memorable hunting memories right there.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Well, I know you've hunted a good bit. You've been outside a lot, and if you do this long enough, you see crazy things that can happen during a hunt. What's the craziest thing you've ever seen?
Well, the craziest thing that ever happened to me, again, back to the Nationals, Hawk made it to the Final Four. We were sitting there hunting, and dogs went in the woods, barked a little bit. Well, two of the dogs went there and barked a little bit. They didn't produce a rabbit, so they ate a minus. And I'm like, okay, well, he didn't bark, and his dog didn't bark. So I'm sitting at number 2 right now, automatically. And so he came back out, started walking down the road a little bit, and Dalton was the judge. He ran, because him and Ruby both made it to the final 16. He had ran Ruby for me, and he lost with her. So he said, well, I judge y'all. I judge this cast since I got to, wait for you anyway, because he put my dogs in his trailer. I said, all right, that's fine with me. And Hawk is a dog. If you're not looking at him, he's going to be 200 yards out in the woods hunting for long. So he's one of the dogs I'm always looking at, the Gorman with my Pathfinder, whatever I'm using at the moment, to see where he's at. Cause I need to know where he's at. And so he went, did a little route. He went in about 120 yards. And then he came back out and was standing in the road. And I was looking at him. He just stood there, and I'm like, this dog has never done that. And then Dalton looked at me, because Dalton knows he's never done that. Cause, me and Dalton run together all the time. So Dalton put me on timer. No, the other judge put me on timer first. So the judge put me on timer. He ate 3, took a minus 100. And he walked down the road and got off the curb just enough for the judge not to see him, to get off the clock. And so he got off the clock. We walked down the road. And there he go, standing there again. And then this time he went in, he walked and sat down. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So he went over there and sat down. Dalton put him on the timer. And I was like, I'm finna scratch the dog. I said, I don't know what's going on. I said, I don't know if it's too hard. He just said, I have no clue. So he went and sat down. The dogs opened up, and I think he had literally 30 seconds before he would have got, scratched anyway. He took out to the dog and got to running, and the dogs went there and lost that rabbit. And he came back and just walked around the road again. I'm like, perfectly normal, fine. And I'm like, what is going on? And one of the other cast members looked down at him, and I was looking at his body. It was my fault for not observing it correctly and making sure everything was right from the distance. But cast member looked down, and he's like, man, he got a bar in his foot. And I said, what? And I looked. He had a stick go through the bottom of his pad. He probably was sticking up 2 inches from the top end of his foot. And that's why he was sitting around the whole time. But he wasn't limping or anything like that to give me a single sign that he had a stick in his foot. He was just walking around. And I said, well, that's lesson learned right there. My fault. It could have totally been a different outcome if I was to be expecting to look for that, but I didn't pay no attention and didn't even cross my mind that was a possible problem. Since he was just walking around like everything was fine. I didn't even think about it.
That is a crazy story. That is a crazy story. Well, as you've been traveling around, especially down here in the southeast, who's got the hottest dog right now in the region? I mean, who's the one that's you think could make some noise in some of these big hunts?
Honestly, almost anything that Jeff runs. Jeff runs some top-notch dogs. I give him that. I don't think I went to a trial that Jeff hasn't won something. Jeff, he got some pretty good dogs. Like I said, not just because me and Jeff are real good friends and I bought dogs from him, but if Jeff come, he gonna put something out there. I done got beat by Jeff. My girl that I run with, she done got beat by Jeff. Everybody I know done got beat by Jeff. So if you see Jeff Stacy coming in the hunt, just know you got some competition in your cast. That's all I'm gonna say.
Mm-hmm. I think most people would agree that most important thing to spend your money on when you first start out is a good dog. I mean, nothing else really matters if you don't have a good dog. So that's your number one priority. What's the second thing somebody ought to buy when they're starting out?
I would say, personally, get a tracking collar. When we first started hunting, me and my dad, we was doing the gun hunt. We did not have a single tracking collar for the first, I don't know how many years. We just had the regular shock and tone only. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't tell you how long we was in the woods, just calling, toning, not knowing where these dogs was at, and it was just a headache. And he finally got that one tracking system. I done added an additional 6 collars to it since we bought it, but he bought that tracking system, and I went out there. He showed me how to use it, and I said, I'm buying. I'm definitely getting some more of these. He said, what? I said, this is a lot easier to know, the dog's coming to you and you 50 yards and you sitting there just guesstimate where the dog is, and if the dog don't show up when you want it to, you get the shocking and the toning and thinking it's way off in the distance. Mm-hmm. So I'll say, definitely get you a tracking collar. You don't even got, if you don't plan on competition hunting, just gun hunting, you don't even got to get a whole set as long as you got a dog that's, stay together, because they're pretty expensive. I'll give them that. If you got some dogs that's going to stay together, just put one on your most trustworthy dog, and it'll let you know the vicinity of which most of them is in anyway. Mm-hmm. Unless, you got something like Hawk that want to go out 200 yards by itself, and then you want to go and add some additional collars.
All right, Jeremiah, I want you to look into the future, into your crystal ball. What's the biggest challenge facing hunters in the future?
Definitely, I would say, spots. It's starting to get a lot of harder, especially down here our way. It's starting to get tough just to find spots to hunt, spots to run. A lot of the spots I used to have back in the days then got sold, and land's getting built on it, and mainly we just me and Dog, we did just recently join the hunting club. So other than that, all we had was, private land, public land, and down here where we're at anyway, I done been to some, hunts where we actually run on public land and jump a ton of rabbits, but some of the public land, especially in the area we're in right here in Gaffney, you'll be lucky to go down there and jump 2 rabbits. And it's just hard. So we usually have to drive off about an hour and a half, 2 hours, just to go run some rabbits. And we still may not go down there to kill 2 or 3. And birds, it's not really about killing rabbits anyway. We went one time and was running a rabbit, and it was just me and Dog. Dog was running. Dog looked at me and he said, I'm going to sit down. And I said, you going to sit down? I'm sitting there right beside you. So the dog ran the rabbit for a while, and I said, Dog, we're going to go kill this rabbit. These dogs going to be running all day. I said, I know you about ready to go. We've been there all day. He said, yeah, let's go kill this rabbit. So he got up and went over there and shot it. And I'm talking about, you was there, you would think you could jump 500 rabbits. It was rabbit coop everywhere. And I'm talking about beautiful bars, all the signs that rabbits are there. We came back another day. We went to that same spot a couple weeks later. We did jump a single rabbit in that area.
Wow.
You know, you look around, you see gun shells and stuff everywhere. I know a lot of people, they like to shoot off the jump, and that also hurts the population when you go in and jump 20 rabbits and kill 18 of them right then and there. But yeah, it's getting difficult to find some good spots to hunt down here. Just to run dogs and stuff like that.
I think that's a common answer. A lot of people are running into the same challenges. Well, let me ask you this. If you could give advice to somebody that's starting out in rabbit hunting, what kind of advice would you give them?
The main advice I give somebody rabbit hunting, from my experience, is be patient. That's all you can be. If you got a good dog that's going to go in there, you know, do the work that it's supposed to do, run that dog as much as you can. You know, the more work you put in that dog, the better that dog is going to be. You know, starting up a pup, I know a lot of people like to try to rush the process of that, and I can speak firsthand experience that it was a late starting dog. I'll tell you this story real quick as well. Mm-hmm. We still got the dog. He's about 11 years old now, and I'll tell you the truth. He turned out to be, if not the best, one of the best dogs we've ever owned. And like I said, we still got him. He don't hunt much no more now since he's so old. And we had this dog. You know, I was telling you, we bought some from Arthur Lynn. We bought him. I think he's maybe 9-10 months old when we bought. His name's Sonny. And we was out there, you know, dogs were running. We'd take them out with the dogs. Back then, you know, we wasn't really using the starting pen. We were trying to start them off on our own. And his brother and sister was going, his cousin was going. You know, we had a few other dogs as well. And they would run. And this dog had no care in the world about a rabbit. I don't care if he threw the rabbit. I don't know. We never introduced him to a live rabbit. We introduced him to the dead rabbits. He hated the dead rabbit. But as far as going in the woods hunting with these dogs, this dog had no care in the world. And he just walk around your feet, want to play in the grass, this, that, and the third. And my daddy, he was getting aggravated real quick. So by the year hit, the dog still doing the same thing. And he said, a year old, he said, the dog not going. He said, just give him a couple more months. My daddy was like, his brother and sister running, I done gave him plenty of time. So another month or two went by, the dog still wasn't doing nothing. My daddy, he was getting aggravated. He was ready to send the dog back to the man, sell the dog, whatever. And the man, like, just take him out a few more times. And the spot we were running at the time, it was a building. The building couldn't be in no side bigger than a trash can that's sitting at the end of the road. This little middle building, about, you know, that wide, that short. And never, ever have we ever jumped a rabbit out of this little building. Like, it's literally sitting in the middle of the field. Mm-hmm. And Sonny was sitting there walking around, and I don't know what clicked in his brain, but this dog ran and smacked his head into the side of this building. And when he did, a rabbit shot out of that building, and ever since then, that dog has ran his tail off, and I say he's probably been one of the best dogs we ever owned. And my daddy looked and said, I'm glad we didn't get rid of him. I said, I'm glad you didn't too.
Patience is hard. Patience is really tough for people.
Oh, yeah, it's really tough, especially, you know, a puppy that's sitting there just wanting to play, and you got these dogs up running. Yeah, I can tell you it gets aggravating. It's like teaching a child how to use the bathroom.
Well, Jeremiah, what keeps you going? I mean, why do you do this? I mean, what is it about rabbit hunting that keeps you going back to the field time after time after time?
I just love it. Hunting, I just love hearing the dogs, you know, the trials. And one thing is the dog, you know, I love to hear the dogs run. I like to see the dogs win. You know, I like for other people to see how my dog perform. But the people as well. I mean, I love the people. I've met a bunch of great people. You know, I keep in contact with you. I would think it like I literally seem like I've known these people for years, and I've literally only known them for a few months. I keep in contact with a bunch of them. We talk all the time. We text all the time. And, you know, the people, it's just a different atmosphere, you know. Mm-hmm. They sit there and meet new people from all different states and get to talk to them, and they actually build a good connection with you. I can honestly say I talk to more people that I met at trials than I do in my own city. Mm-hmm. And that says a lot. But I've met a bunch of great people like Davis. I talk to Davis all the time. I met him from Jeff, Nick, Will, Allen, all them, Bailey, Josie. I've been on with Jeff and Kristen, but, we built a stronger bond. It's another guy, Jeff. He's in Indiana. We was literally texting earlier today. Mark, Day. It's a bunch of them, but I just been real super close with every since I've been with them. They've been some real great guys. And girls as well. They've just been great people and always, help me out if I got a question. Nobody got a problem with answering it. They send videos of how their dogs running that day. I'll send video of the dogs, and I buy a new dog or something like that. I send a dog. They compliment the dog. Look into the pedigree a little bit, tell me what it's out of. Especially Kristen. Kristen gonna fact check every bit of pedigree, so she gonna tell you what this dog originated from. She know the most. I say she know the most knowledge of anything I've ever seen. Me and Dalton, we went in half on this puppy, and we showed the pedigree, and she literally named where every single dog on here this puppy pedigree came from. And I'm like, I don't know how you just did that, but I guess there's some good stuff if you know it. That's all I can say about that one.
Well, it is important to surround yourself with good people, and it sounds like you certainly have, and there's nothing like that bond and that brotherhood that comes in this hunting community. So if I call you up in 5-10 years from now, are you still going to be doing this?
Oh, yes, sir. If I'm not doing it as much, I'm going to sure get out there every chance I get. You can definitely see me at some more hunts, that's for sure. I don't know. I done got addicted super quick. I ain't been doing it long. It hasn't even been a full year for me, but this is something it's a whole different world. I've been trying to get my dad to come out and get started with it. He did maybe 1 or 2 hunts back in his younger days, and I told him, I'm going to start trialing dogs, and he said, well, good luck. He said, you're going to be going up against some good dogs, and he said, don't be counting on winning. And so, I made Hawk a champion in 3 his fourth hunt. That was his fourth hunt. The one Low Valley White champion him out, and I said, well, I guess I got a pretty good talent too. That's all I can tell him. I really much enjoy it. I want to get him out there, and I got some, my brother and all them. I want to get people. I'm trying to get more people involved. It's definitely something that I wish more people around here would do, because me and Dalton from Blacksburg, I think we're the only 2 that actually trial dogs. I couldn't tell you anybody else around here that trial dogs. I know a couple guys, do some gun hunting and stuff like that, but there's not a lot of beaglers down here where we're from. It's a lot of coon hunters, but not too many people in the beagle world.
Well, Jeremiah, as we finish up, I just wanted to thank you for your time again and sharing so much with us. But is there anything that I didn't ask you about that I should have, or is there anything else you want to cover or promote? Do you have a stud dog, puppies, upcoming hunts, anything like that on your mind?
We don't got any, not too much. For future references, I hope Dalton don't kick my butt for mentioning this, but me and him are trying to open up a club down here in South Carolina, Blacksburg, South Carolina. We just had a discussion on it the other day. Since we joined this club, we got a few more properties. So if we do be able to host that, just be on the lookout for that. We would very much appreciate anybody we could get. It'll be the first club down here in probably 10 years, and so we're not going to be expecting a big outcome or anything like that, but anybody we can get down here be very much appreciated if we do decide to open that club.
Very good. Well, we'll be on the lookout for it. Well, Jeremiah, thank you so much. I really, again, just really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to sit down and share a little bit more about you and your hounds and your background, your history with all of us. It's been super. I thank you so much.
Oh, I thank you. I ain't gonna lie, I've been wanting to do a podcast for so long, and when you text me with the opportunity, I just started telling everybody. I said, he texted me, you want to do a podcast, so the pleasure is very much mine. I would very much tell you that.
Well, I appreciate it. You did a super job, Jeremiah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Buff in the Rough. Remember to like and subscribe if you want to be notified when new content is available. And please send comments and suggestions to buffintherough@gmail.com.